Welcome to another episode of Center Stage Podcast, and today we'll be talking about powerful women. How do powerful women balance the workplace and hold the home steady? Today I have the delectable Anna with me in the house, and she's one of those women, breaking the glass ceiling, doing exploits, just managing to keep that balance. So what does it mean, Anna, to be an independent boss lady?
Well, not a heavy question, but I think the word independent is something that we get to hear every day. Probably I'll just sort of list some characteristics of what an independent woman is like.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you want to see someone who is very confident in herself, someone who is ambitious, someone that is resourceful,
Mm-hmm.
someone that is autonomous.
I like that.
Yeah, someone that has that capacity to make decisions for themselves and is able to take care of their entire well-being, all by themselves. I think that when you talk about independence, one's brain begins to reason in that direction.
I like the use of the word autonomous, and I know autonomous can mean many things, but
Yeah.
let me ask you, how have you been able to embrace being a boss lady?
Well, that word boss lady, it has sort of gained some, what
Do you want to say
should I
momentum?
use?
Or,
Yeah, over time, and then some negative inclination, along the way, because some ladies started using it wrongly, but I think in the right sense of the word, a boss lady is a boss lady for what it is. So, to get back to your question, sometimes you just have to, or you come to a realization or to a place where you realize that this is who I am. And then you embrace that personality and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
For someone like me, because again, in the society, to have that personality where people call you a boss lady means that, you have a very strong personality, and then you can come in as being very proud, or being too strong-headed, or, very stubborn.
or being too tough?
Tough, yeah, or arrogant, or the list is endless, but I realized early on in my life that this is who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not going to shrink for anybody, and I'm not going to dim my light. And I just needed to walk into a room with that realization that it's either they accept me or not.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been a win-win situation for me. I don't care if people like me, or I don't care if people dislike me. What I demand is respect.
Respect.
Yes.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Okay, so
Yes.
what you said now reminds me of some time back I used to be called Iron Lady. I
I
can imagine me very small, in the midst of everybody, Iron Lady. And I think that allusion, like you said, it has a linkage with the expression of being tough, being firm, but maybe not necessarily arrogant. But let me bring it back to you. So at what point did that realization hit you that I think I'm different? Because not every woman is a boss lady. At what point did that hit you?
So for someone like me, I realized myself very early. So even from
How early?
as a teenager, I think I realized who I was. I relate more with older people.
Okay.
I'm friends with older people because somehow they get to understand where I'm coming from better than my peers. Because a lot of people who are the same age grade with me really don't get to see that this is just who I am. They think it's something else or being too much, right? So right from secondary school, I realized that this is who I am. I have a very strong personality. It puts some people off, and it draws some people to me. And then I realized that, I get to take up battles that are not mine, because I hate to see when someone else is put down and then they're unable to fight for themselves. I really can't understand why someone else will let another person bully them or put them down. So for me, it's a setback, and maybe because of the way I grew up, or because of the family that I grew up in. My dad would let us make decisions for ourselves.
Even at an early age?
At an early age.
Okay.
I decided the secondary school I wanted to go to. I wrote about 6 common entrances from primary school. Yes. So my dad made us make those choices. And then of course, I aced all. And then I said, oh, this is where I wanted to go to. Thank you. So the same applied to my brothers.
Yeah.
So we're allowed to make decisions early on. So we're provided with options, and then we had to choose. So that was the thing for me. I always knew what I wanted, and you're never going to take it away from me. If I want it, I'm taking it.
So can I ask you a question? So if you didn't have that support from family, from your parents, would you be a boss lady today, do you think?
Well, you know that some things come with nature and then nurture. So part of it, I would say, naturally that way in some sort of way. And then because of the family that I grew up in, you were given that pedestal to just shine and be yourself. So what my parents were able to do was to give me some sense of control and direction, because with some natural attributes come some also negative things that you're born with, character or attitude or what you want to call it. So while I had a strong personality, I also had some sort of anger issues, right? If I didn't have my way, you know.
So will you throw a tantrum?
Yeah,
or?
big tantrums.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ah.
Big tantrums, you know, and my dad would be worried.
Okay.
And because I was a daddy's girl, he would, you know, he'd find a way to just try to reason it out with me. But my mother, you know, the back of her slippers.
That hits very hard, right?
Very, very hard, you know.
Yeah.
But I think both, it kind of balanced it out, and then it helped me a lot. So I would say the nurture that came from family, and then that natural personality that I had was able to just, you know, balance it both to make me a better person.
Thank you very much, Anna, for sharing your story, and I hope this encourages a lot of people out there, especially young women who are aspiring, you know, to own their space and to show up in a way that, you know, really matters to them and allows them to just get to that maximum place of potential that they could get to. If you were to list 3 values as a boss lady for you, what would that be?
First, you have to be a say never person. It's very important.
That means resilience.
You have to be very resilient, because you know the world that we're in, you know, before...
Are you talking about the world in Nigeria or the world in... Which one?
Okay, let's start from Nigeria.
Okay.
But then you can take it as far as, you know you want to take it.
Okay.
You know, the dynamics might be different, but we know that, you know, here and there, the traces can be found. And again, for us in Africa, and then, of course, maybe in my time, things changed a bit, but I think maybe you would understand better being a woman coming into this space, wanting to take what you want, and being assertive to say, I want this and I'm going to get it. You know, some people even say, like, what is she after? Do you understand? Who does she think she is? You know, a lot of questions begin to, you know, to come up at that point. But for me, the second point would be, I don't know if I can use this word, but let the word go to
Oh, yeah, sure.
because people will say things, people would make assumptions, people would, you know, try to tear you down, try to pull you down. You're going to have oppositions, but then you're going to tell yourself, I don't care. The word can burn.
This is what I want.
Yeah. And I'm going for it. And if it's possible, burn it down yourself. You burn the rest of the world down. So because for me, once I set my heart on something, there is no obstacle.
Yeah.
There
And
is
the
no,
third
except I don't want it. I'm just trying to imagine a lot of things, except I don't want that thing. Once I set my heart to it, I'm burning everything down. I'm getting it. Nothing is stopping me. No money, no
I
anything.
don't want to be in your bad books, Anna.
Yeah, no, but basically, and then
The third
you
one?
have to trust God.
Okay.
Yourself
God.
and then God. Yes, because sometimes your strengths to fail. You know, sometimes you're going to break down because you know that for us who have very strong personalities, people can assume very quickly that you don't have your bad times or you don't break down, or there are times where you don't feel like giving up, but that's a lie. You know, I cry, but not in public. You know, I just get in my wardrobe and cry, and then when I'm done with those tears, I'm back in.
Okay.
Yeah, so what? Put all your trust in God and trust Him and pray that, you know, He directs you and leads you and gives you that favor that you need.
Thank you, Anna. So can I ask you, how have you been able to marry your work space, you know, and your marriage, no pun intended. How have you been able to marry those spaces together?
Well.
Well, yeah.
Well, because, so these are two different entities. And you need to understand how to marry them. And the earlier you understand, the better for you. So because I was very ambitious from a very young age, I did a lot of things, as a teenager, even in the university, and then getting to meet another young man very early, and then getting married at the age of 25.
Really?
I didn't understand what I was getting into. I know for someone like me, or with a personality like ours, and because you think you know what you want, or you think you know where you're going, you can make the right decisions, or you think you're knowledgeable enough, sometimes you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah, true.
So, you embody a lot of things with the mindset that I can do it, but not necessarily with the knowledge to accomplish those things. So that would be trying to marry your work life, and then the marital life, because I was chasing this. And like I said, I don't like being stalked. So now you're under a man, and you have to make certain decisions. Okay, this is where I want to go, or this is what I want to do now, right? And he's saying, I don't think this is the right time to do it. And I'm looking at this dude like, oh, man, you be. You understand? I'm like, in my head, who gives you the damn right? Because my father have always been supportive. Yeah. If I wanted something, finances weren't going to stop it. He wasn't going to stop me. In fact, he wanted me to fly. Yeah. So that was where I was. I just wanted to keep flying.
Keep soaring.
Yeah, and soar, to wherever heights that, I wanted to go. And yeah, in the heart of the man, my husband at this point, it wasn't from a place of trying to hold me back, but from a place of concern for the as a body, as a unit. But I wasn't seeing it like that. So I thought I understood what marriage was, getting into it. Oh, you're in love, you want to get married, but then putting your life into the hands of another person. And then as a woman, I didn't understand that. And then the question of submission begins to come in, which is another long story. Like, words we didn't want to hear. And at that point, I didn't understand what that meant. That, oh, yes, you wanted to do something, but then there's a head of the family who have to make the final decision in the best interest of the family. And I'll go ahead and those, which hurt my marriage in the beginning. Because I was making a lot of wrong decisions. Because if you say no, I'm going no. Right? Like when I resigned from my job, I went to Lagos. So, because I wanted to go to film school. It wasn't a unanimous decision. He loved the idea, but he didn't think it was the time.
Yeah, right? So timing was off.
It was off. And it was just about 1 year into our marriage.
Oops.
Yes. And of course, as a young couple, we're just trying to, find our feet. At that point, trying to survive. And then I said I was going to Lagos. Like, I was just done with the job. And he was like, oh, you can't do this now. I don't think we're financially ready, or, you should be going now. We can plan it. And I said, it's now. My spirit wants to do it now. And it's now. I kind of cajoled him when I went to Lagos. But, at the end of the day, it's going to bring some ego. You're going to hurt some egos. His ego is going to get hurt. And along the line, that became an issue. Of course, even though he supported me while in Lagos, but then egos have been bruised and, a lot of issues. That's just one example, of many others. But as the marriage began to grow, and we struggled through, certain things, I had to ask myself, what I wanted from this place. Because I got depressed, heavily depressed. And because my marriage wasn't working. And if you're a woman, like us, who believe in accomplishing or in accomplishments, who want to see the tangible results of everything. So I treated the career like the marriage because I felt, oh, if my career is thriving, my marriage should thrive. I want everything to thrive. That's the kind of person I am. I'm not saying one should thrive, no. All of it. If I'm going to do it, then it must work. So I'm asking myself, do I want this to work? How am I going to make it? So of course, at this point, different things have gone, under, what I don't pass on that bridge, however I want to come, right? And I was saying, how do I make this work? How do I marry both? How do I become this wife to this guy?
Yeah. And still maintain your
Still
career
maintain
and
my
progress.
career and my person. And my person. Because sometimes when you think of changing, of adjusting, because everything is about growth, even in marriage. So, was I ready for that growth? One question I need to ask myself, because sometimes growth is very painful. Because then you think that you're trying to give up yourself.
What?
But it's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
It's how you're approaching of what good, what's the ultimate good of that thing or of that growth that has to happen for this. And I said I want both worlds. I want to be successful here and I want to be successful there. So what do I have to do? So I started having conversations. My communications were wrong. For someone who's even in the communication space.
Why am I surprised?
I'm so ashamed to even say that. I was bad at communicating, right? What was my approach to communicating, like to making things work? And when you say communication, what do you even mean in the first place? Because sometimes you communicate, we think, oh, it's because you just open your mouth and spill something, then you've communicated. What's the approach?
Yeah.
How does the other person receive and digest information?
What's the perception that you're
Exactly, that you're passing, when you're trying to communicate.
But here you are today. It's been a long journey. You are thriving in your career. So that means you got the formula right.
Yes.
And at this point, we need to thank Anna's husband for supporting her, and just being magnanimous enough, to allow both of you to walk through the challenges at those times. What would you say to your younger self about, I think it's two things, about making sure, if that's what you want, to have an aspiring career and to have a healthy home?
So I would say learn.
Learn. Okay.
Learn, because sometimes knowledge is not self-sufficient. So you can make errors when you begin to feel like, oh, I'm intelligent, I'm smart, because maybe people say that to you, and then it gets into your head, and then you think because you're knowledgeable in this area, then you're knowledgeable here. That's not necessarily the case. So for me, you would assume, or I would assume at the time, that marriage was a walk in the park.
Yeah.
You're in love with this guy, he's also absolutely in love with you, and you think that, oh, because that love is there, it's just going to work out. And then you didn't think that there needs to be that transformation, right, that you need to have, maybe on both sides, of the coin. So for me, I started saying, I started asking the questions, am I even really a good person? Because for me,
I beg now.
No, quote and unquote, let's put a good in quotes.
Yeah.
Because like I say, or like I try to say to people when I have conversations with them, especially about marriage, and I was saying one time that it's when you get married that you discover you're not necessarily as good as you think. Maybe especially as a Christian. Let's come from that point of view, right? Do you really have the fruits of the Spirit?
Or have you eaten them?
Right. So then you begin to ask the question, are you truly patient? Are you kind? Are you tolerant?
And all this comes from learning,
from
right?
learning.
So you said learn,
said
learn, and maybe even unlearn.
And unlearn.
Unlearn,
And
yeah.
unlearn.
Yeah.
And unlearn. And unlearn what you know. Because I think if you don't allow yourself to grow, because like I said, not everybody accepts the fact to grow. You have to come to the point where you say, must this growth happen? For the seed to break forth from the soil.
It must go into the ground.
Yeah, it must go into the ground, and then the surface of the earth must crack for it to come out. So it's just a hard place.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but then the fruit sprouts out, and then it grows, and then there's fruit, and then people eat from it. So it's the benefit of where we are now, in our marriage, allowing ourselves to grow, and then really having that conversation to say, do we want to do this?
Yeah.
If we are going to do this, how do we do it better?
What price are you willing to pay?
What
to
price
be
are you
able to
willing
get it
to
right?
pay? And yet learn to shut my mouth. Especially when I'm angry.
Okay.
Yeah, because the words that come out weren't necessarily maybe palatable, and then it might cause more damage than necessary. So, but then you need to learn how to talk to the other person and then see, not dismiss the emotion of the other person. If they say they feel this way, then that's how they feel.
Yeah.
You must not rationalize it. You must not understand it. And then you're able to. So I became more curious. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know more.
Yeah.
I started asking questions. I went for personal counseling.
Awesome.
Yeah, because at the time I was depressed and I felt like, what happened? And then I started praying and, I started asking God for help because sometimes you're Christian, but then how much do you submit to the Holy Spirit anyway? Yeah. What is God saying to you? Whether, you're just living your life and then you're making the decisions because you feel like you know it all by yourself. Yeah. So I just had to go in, dig into myself and say, I wanted to make this work. Yeah. He's willing to make it work. So we have to find a way to marry it. And then to answer this question better, I discovered that who I am at the office or who I am in the world where I want to thrive is different from my home. The attitude I present here is different. So when people see me now on my home, you just see the clear demarcation. I might be, yeah, that's just the truth. So I might just be a gangster here or very ruthless in my business, but then when it comes to my family, I just want to be different. Yes, I just want to be that tender, loving wife and mother.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I discovered that who's strong here help now.
So I think where a lot of women might not get it is just this thing you've said about how do you show up.
Yeah, how do you show up?
And some people just think it's the same formula everywhere. You show up as being tough at work, you show up as being tough in the house, and oh well, Anna, it's been such an exciting time, sharing some of these moments with you. And I'm really happy that you're able to share your personal story. And I hope a lot of our viewers out there have taken one or two things and tips.
Hopefully.
So I love the bit about learning and unlearning because that will help us to, decide what you want, map out what you want, and see how you get there.
Yes,
so thanks again for coming to Center Stage Podcast today.
Thank you.
I look forward to see you some other time.
Yes, and before you dismiss me.
Oh, I know.
I know of you. I think a bit of your trajectory. So give us a thing or two, from your wealth of knowledge. How did you do it? Sometimes I get to wonder. So maybe this is an opportunity to ask the question.
Now I'm being put on the spot. Okay.
Yes. So I get to wonder your age.
My age? Okay.
Your accomplishments.
Okay.
When did you start?
Okay.
How did you start? And I look at your family. I'm like, impossible.
How?
How do you have the kids that you have? And then you're able to marry all of that with the career that you have. And you're here. You're managing an entire organization. And you're running it beautifully. You're still managing your family.
Oh, thank you for those kind words. But I see a lot of similarity in your story and mine. So can I start with the first one?
Okay.
We got married at around the same age.
Oh.
Yeah. So I got married at 25 as well, and I started my family immediately. And I think for me, what made it work was I had a lot of support. I had support from my husband. I had support from the extended family. And of course, I had twins. And by the time the twins came, my first son was around 2. So at some point, I had 3 children all under age 5. And it was just like, you know what? But I had that support. And I was also determined and driven like you. And I also came into the marriage not knowing what to expect. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot. And but I also stayed focused, stayed determined. Of course, there were challenges. Lots of challenges. But I entered into the career market, and an older mentor told me that women like you, and I will never forget, can hardly have both worlds. You can't have the career, and you can't have the home.
Someone said this to me recently.
You have to choose one.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. And I said, for me, I ain't choosing nothing because I want both, like you said. That's why I said there are a lot of similarities. And God helping me, many years down the line, I was able to, coast through some of those challenges of not being able to show up as I would have wanted to in certain spaces. But I had the kind of support that when I felt, at some point I felt, no, I can't do this anymore. And at that point, just help will just come from somewhere. And what women don't know is how to recognize help when help comes. Because we try to think that we are strong, we put ourselves there as super women. But anything can teach you and anything can help you. So again, I'm going back to your point about learning and unlearning. And that helped me a lot. So I've answered your question.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I have one more.
One more, okay.
Okay. Running an organization like this, in a space like this, like in a non-profit, that we are. I know that it's a dog-eat-dog situation out there.
Mafia world, really.
You have to have you have to have your guns ready, I've always thought, and I try to ask myself that question, as a woman, it's, coming to the peak, when you're an executive, you have a lot of more, male dominating that space, when you get to that peak. And, you have to go to spaces where you want to take what you want, and how do you do it? How do you retain saneness or some sort of sincerity of person without
losing it,
without losing who you, I don't know, without losing who you are, and then still getting what you still competing, seriously, and getting what you want.
I think for me, I can't take God away from the equation because, God has really helped me. I feel blessed and I feel privileged to occupy this space. And of course, the NGO world and other development sectors and other economic sectors in Nigeria are dominated by males, but some of us are a bit more resilient. You might be small, but mighty, more resilient, keep your eye on the ball and hone your skills. I think that for me has set me apart. If I choose to do something, I want to know how to do it well. No matter what cost it's going to cost me in terms of time, sacrificing time, maybe even sacrificing my resources to learn, like you said, I will learn it. And in learning, you make mistakes. In executing and implementing, you make mistakes. But be open and be vulnerable, learn from your mistakes, and just get back on that trajectory that you talked about from the beginning. So, yeah.
Last question.
So I think, one more. Oh, no.
One more.
Okay.
One more. Nothing. Okay. For both of us, we want the career, we want the marriage, we want the life. I want all the good things of life. I'm not taking anything out. Trust me. The keys, everything. For other women watching, how would you advise them to choose a partner that will let them thrive? Because if you look at a lot of women, you see them shining and then once they get married, their light dims. It wasn't the case for the both of us. I have a husband that wants me to thrive. He keeps pushing me. Sometimes I feel it's even too much, right? So, of course, and you had a husband that, allowed you to thrive, to soar, to become all that you wanted to be. How would you advise, young women out there to look out, or what kind of partner should they look out for? What are the signs, Because once you get it wrong,
I don't know that there's any formula for that, actually, Anna. I'm not sure there's any formula. You just have to know what you want. You have to know yourself, know what you want. And you have to be true to who you think you are with.
How about the women that how about the women that married some of the men that shut them down? They shut down their vision. Are you saying?
So sometimes some of those signs are there at the beginning. How alert are you as a woman? You are going into a relationship. This is for life. You are going to be with someone. It's like you are handing over all of yourself to someone, or you are joining forces with someone. So how much of that person do you know? How much of in those days our parents would go and do investigation.
In the village,
how much of even if they don't reach village, but now technology, you can do anything, Abby. How much of that investigation have you done? How well do you know this person? How much of those boundaries have you tested? Do you understand? And how much of communication has gone on? How well have you both sat down to discuss your goals? What do I want? What does he want? I know some of those goals can change.
Conversation at 25.
No, conversation on care.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying.
But now things are different. The way young people think are different. Young people go into relationships now, taking more responsibility and a little bit more independent than we used to be.
Yeah.
So they need to ask those questions, and they need to learn from mistakes.
That, yeah, of course.
Learn from mistakes, and we learn from our mistakes, and we're better for it. But not everybody can tell that story today, so they didn't have that chance to tell that story. So, yeah.
Very well.
Excellent reflection.
Yeah.
So thank you, Anna, for allowing us to go that route. I think now we can call it a day, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some other time we can push this, unpack, because I think there's actually a lot more.
True.
For example, conversations around the spouse, how do you choose? We can't start and finish now.
No,
it's a lot,
yes,
and then I'm looking forward to having those conversations with you. But
great.
Let me congratulate you on your journey.
Thank you.
It takes a lot of hard work. You've put in a lot, and I pray that things will work even better than you have planned.
Amen.
And once again, I want to thank Anna's husband. Anna's husband, thank you for supporting her.
Thank you, baby.
Thank you for supporting her.
Yes,
and to all men out there supporting their partners.
Yes,
kudos.
exactly.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you
and
so
that's
much.
actually the game changer.
Yes.
So on that note, thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me, Auntie Funke.
Yay!